Hey guys, this is Olivia from Rose Petal Writings, and welcome to Rose Petal Musings. So, full disclosure, I chose that interlude because it's called The Telling, and I'm here to tell you about writing. So, hello, welcome to Rose Petal Musings. I'm Olivia, and we are going to get into what makes a writer. So, what does make a writer? What gives someone the drive, the skill, and the talent to become a writer, to make it their profession, their career? Well, writing history goes back well before we had the alphabet as we know it, which would take far too long to go fully into. I may parse the actual history of writing out into multiple episodes, but this is going to be a recent, very recent writing history with some modern statistics. I'll mostly be looking at the career statistics from 2020, just because it would take far too long to go way back in depth. I'm really only looking to make this episode like 30 minutes at most. We'll see how that goes, because I like to talk fast. Especially when I get excited, I like to talk fast. So bear with me. This is episode 1. We will hope to get improvements and such as I go on. But for now, here we are. Thank you for sticking around, and thank you for listening to me anyway. So let's get started. We all love numbers and doing math, so we'll start with the good news. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median pay for writers and authors in 2020 came to $67,120 per year and to $32.27 per hour. From where I'm sitting, that seems like a dream. That's not what I'm currently being paid, but I'm also not a published author. Yet. Also, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the typical entry-level education for writers and authors is a bachelor's degree, which takes 4 years to earn, and a lot more than that yearly salary. Now, what the degree is in hasn't been listed that I could see, but my suspicion is that it's not listed because it's going to be a wide range. Anyone can be an author, anyone can be a writer. It doesn't matter where your education lies, because writing can cover such a large variety of topics. Anything you can think about can be written, and you can hire someone who is specialized in that field who also has a writing talent to put that on paper for you, which is really cool. There were 143,200 writing jobs in 2020 in the United States, and 68% of those jobs are considered self-employment. So this includes authors, freelance copywriters such as myself, and other people who would write for a client or for themselves in the subcontracting business. The total number of writing jobs is expected to increase 9% by 2030 to 155,400 writing jobs. So what this means is more people are getting into writing and breaking into the writing career community. The Bureau of Labor Statistics also mentions that people who employ writers often prefer them to be skilled in digital and graphic design, video and audio editing. This may seem mind-boggling that employers want to hire someone to do 2 or more different jobs because they are vastly different, but oftentimes the jobs wind up being really intertwined. For example, think of a typical Instagram post. You have your graphic, your picture. Beneath it, you have your caption, the writing. Then mixed in or beneath that are your tags. That deals with marketing and search engine optimization, otherwise known as SEO. That is 3 different skills at least coming together for one post. To make an entire month of posts generally, you want 1 or 2 people working on them together, because to have one person handle every aspect would be far too specialized, and you'd be having people butt heads over what should be used, and oftentimes copywriters already know a lot of these skills to begin with. Even with self-employment, you wind up doing more than one job. you don't just write when you want to publish, especially if you're trying to self-publish or even go the traditional publishing route. Often you're making your own cover, marketing your work yourself, trying to network with different publication companies or even agents if you choose that. This takes a lot of time, effort, and sometimes money. I could go on about all it takes to get yourself out there with freelancing. Honestly, I could, but that's going to be another episode in and of itself. It would be absolutely insane to get into just how much work and time and effort it takes to start freelancing. And oftentimes there's very little reward for it at first. The reward builds up as you go on. But to just try to break out and get your name out there, it's absolutely time consuming and can be a money pit if you're not careful. But I digress. The biggest thing about becoming a writer is skill. Writing is a practice. You can have writing talent that comes naturally to you, sure, but writing is at its core a skill. It can be practiced, improved upon. The easiest way to improve your writing is to write. People say you have to write every day, and honestly, sometimes you just don't have the energy for that. Oftentimes, since I write for my job, I am writing every day, but it's not that creative outlet that sometimes you wish it was. Although granted, I am not published yet. To become a writer, you're going to have to put your name out there. There are some common ways to put your name out there, from working on small projects with other people, co-authoring works, or something like what I do. I'm currently working as a freelance writer and a part-time copywriter. Where I can, I put my name. It showcases your skill and lets people know that, hey, this is who wrote that. If you want more of that, here's who you talk to. That can be very difficult, and again, it takes time. The most important thing with putting your name out there and getting noticed is time. It will take time for people to notice you, for the networking to get across, and for people to actually contact you. Because the first person who sees your post or your work or whatever it may not be the first person to contact you about paying for that work. That takes a lot of time, and I think that's where a lot of people get either bogged down or frustrated or feel like they're not accomplishing enough. I know I felt like that recently. Before I got my first commission, I was honestly thinking about giving up on the freelancing because it was taking so much time, so much effort. I was pouring everything I had into it. I bought a domain for my website. I got a membership on WordPress to make my website. I was making all these different accounts. I was trying to spread information. I was adding all these people, making all these posts like, hey, look at me, this is what I'm doing. And it just felt like it wasn't going anywhere, which is frustrating. It really is. And until I got that first commission, until someone finally came up and said, hey, I want to commission you, it was very difficult to just kind of keep going. But what I can say is, if you've got the skill and you've got the determination, you can do this. So, is skill what makes a writer? Kind of. It's one part of the equation. The simplest definition of what makes a writer is this. If you write, you're a writer. If you can take an idea and put the words on the page, you are a writer. Everyone starts somewhere, so don't worry about quality if you're just starting out. Improvement comes with practice. Practice as often as you can. There is an awesome writing community on Twitter with writers who talk life as much as they talk writing. It's been very motivational. It kind of lifts my day to see, these are people who are going through the same things that I'm going through, This is a shared experience, and it can just kind of help you get that motivation to keep going, especially on the days where it gets really hard. And I highly recommend following the writing community tag to see what that's all about, because there's a vast community of people who write different things. It doesn't have to be all fiction writers, it doesn't all have to be nonfiction. It's a variety of people who are like, hey, we all write, we do our thing, and we post about it because this is an experience that needs shared. And that networking could land you a deal. It's amazing what you find and who you can befriend on Twitter, because it's just a social media app. Like, you honestly don't think like, oh, people are going to get their big break on Twitter. You don't think that when you go into it. But sometimes having that mutual who is also a literary agent could be the key to your success. You never know. And that's sometimes the confusing part with writing, because writing is so varied and so general of a career. You sometimes just have to get lucky to make it. Like, a lot of the times you'll find authors who simply don't give up. My dad was telling me a story the other day about Louis L'Amour, who was a Western writer, and he said, you read any of his books, it's the same formula. It's the same book just over and over again with different characters, which, yes, that is boring, but Louis L'Amour has a very prolific writing career, and he got rejected by so many publishing companies that it was very difficult for him to even get his books in the stores to be sold. So what he would do is, now granted this is from my dad, so I can't confirm if this is true or not, but supposedly what he would do is he would buy cases of his books. If they were published, he would buy the case and bribe the delivery drivers for each store, either like taking them out for a meal or like actually handing them cash, I'm not sure which. And these drivers would take the cases of his books to the bookstores, and the bookstores would just put them on the shelf, because what are they going to do with them? They have them. And that's how he got noticed. That's how he got his books in the stores to be seen by customers. And it can be really disheartening to hear that you have to bribe delivery drivers to get your books to a store. But we have a different way of doing that now. It's 2021. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. We have all these different ways to connect. And if you can make those connections in a smart way, you can get pretty much anywhere. I may sound I sound a little sentimental and a little out of order, but I will admit I wrote a script, it looked long enough, and now I'm looking and I'm almost 14 minutes in out of the 30 I wanted, so I just kind of started rambling. My dad told me the Louis L'Amour story like yesterday at a pep talk, and honestly, the art of storytelling is so, I don't want to say varied again because I've been saying varied a lot and generalized, but it truly is. Because when you get into writing, there are so many things you want to say that sometimes it's hard to pick the right thing. And you don't know, you're like, is this the right thing? Is this, what will be interesting to other people? Will this get noticed? And it even comes to a podcast. Like, I screwed up with my own writing today. I didn't write enough. And sometimes the natural art of a storyteller will come through when you have to go off the cuff. I'm gonna just kind of ramble for another 15 minutes, and you guys are either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it and be like, what the fuck? Excuse me. But it's an art. It is also a talent. It is also a skill. The more you practice, the better you will be, and the more confident you will feel in your writing. A year ago, when I was still in college, I would not have had the guts to start a podcast. Because why would I want to listen to myself ramble for 30 minutes to an hour when this is how I talk? This is me in a conversation. I pause, I take time, I backtrack, I loop around. It's sometimes hard to follow where I'm going. But when I write, I can communicate so much more effectively because I have that choice to backspace, to add things in, and people can read my thoughts organized how I want them to be organized. And it took a lot of skill and a lot of practicing to get to that point. I was a writer before I entered college. I was a writer the minute I decided I want to write. But the difference between being a writer as a hobby and being a career writer is getting noticed. It's getting your name out there. And a lot of people are doing it from these writing jobs. People need writers. People want writers. There are jobs out there for people who want to write as a career. It's possible. Not everyone who writes has to become an author. Granted, that is what I want to do, but I would also be happy with a career in just copywriting. Because copywriting, which for those who don't know, is taking a brand voice or, the ideals and values of a particular brand and writing down captions or blogs or newsletters using that voice. So what I do is, I don't even practice yoga regularly. I'm so bad about it. But I work part-time for a yoga company and I write copy for them. I write their social media posts. I write their monthly newsletter. And I enjoy that. I enjoy getting to learn new things. I had no idea about yoga, and I had no idea about any of the methodology they used. And then I actually started researching it for my job, which started as my internship. And it was just so cool to learn all these new things. And I think that's another part of being a writer. Writers do a lot of research. Even in fiction, you do a lot of research. Like the story I'm working on right now, Vampires Across Time, that epic that I keep mentioning that I'm sure everybody's sick about hearing at this point, because why does she spell vampires and magic for my other story so stupidly? There's a point to it. I'll get there if you read it. But in Vampires Across Time, I wanted to set it in 1985 London. The London suburbs, specifically. So, I live in Pennsylvania and I was born in 1998. There is quite a span of time and geographical difference that I had no idea what suburbia in 1985 London looked like. So I did a lot of research. I created a playlist even for popular pop-punk 1980s music in London. I actually wound up liking it, don't come at me. And I asked primary sources as well. I know somebody who lives in England and was in the London area around the 1980s. And so I asked him, I'm like, what was the culture? Like, what was it like? Do you know any slang from that time? And granted, he didn't know a lot because I was asking somebody who was not punk about the punk scene. But he gave me a lot of insight as to how welcoming and open the culture still was in London in 1985. And having that primary perspective, doing that research, and having that interview really helped set my scene. It helped me get that backstory and be prepared for when I sat down to write. So, the equation to make a writer, basically the recipe for a writer, you'll find is often skill, practice, research, determination, perseverance, maybe a sprinkle of talent if you got it, and a lot of caffeine. Because to write for a career, or just a book, if you want to publish one book in your lifetime, like that's your bucket list thing, it takes a lot of time to even do. To sit down and stare at a computer and hope that, or if you decide to write by hand, that takes even more time because you're just sat staring at a blank page like, ideas, come to me, please. And it takes so much time that people who are working full-time, people who are trying to work full-time, who have families, who have lives, it can be really difficult to carve out that time. And most often you'll find people make personal sacrifices to be a writer. People cancel those plans, they take time away from things that they would normally enjoy, like a hobby, because while writing can be a hobby, it is such a time-consuming hobby that it can just take over. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's also very easy to get sucked in and frustrated, and then you find writer's block, which I don't know if I could dedicate a whole episode to writer's block, because I would probably get writer's block about it, because it's difficult to talk about because it looks different for everybody. But more often than not, the common symptom is, I cannot physically write. For one reason or another, the ideas are not coming to me, I cannot pull them out, and it's not helping me get my work done. And there are a number of home remedies for a writer's block. But that doesn't necessarily mean you aren't a writer. You also don't necessarily have to drink coffee. Notice I never said coffee, I said caffeine. Earl Grey tea is lovely. But writers often feel like it's just them sometimes. They often feel like, locked away in their little caves, hidden away from the world so they can work on their masterpiece. It doesn't have to be that way. A lot of the times you can get inspired from other people. Like the story with my dad. It inspired me to ramble myself up to 23 minutes. And this writing community on Twitter, it's been an awesome place. I've met so many author friends, and it's just so wonderful to see their experiences, to cheer them on, and be like, holy cow, you did it. You got your book published. That's great. And it's so nice to have people who understand the journey it took to get there. Because sometimes you might have, your parent, your sibling, your spouse, your friend, whatever, who's like, oh my God, you did it. That's great. But they also may not understand just how much it took to get there. And so having somebody who understands that process, who understands the journey that you had to take to get there, it can be such an awesome feeling to be like, look, friend who understands, I did it. Honestly, I'm really excited to get to that moment, but I am nowhere near it. I may not have worked on Vampires Across Time in 2 weeks at most, because I recently wrote a little blurb that doesn't even fit into where I am right now, but it counts. I'm still a writer. I still write. And no matter where you are in your writing process, you're a writer too. If you write, you are a writer. So, speaking of connecting with other writers, here's where you can find me. So you can follow me and we can talk writing. And maybe you can scold me and tell me, Liv, make a better script next time. Don't go off the cuff. We hated it. But I am on Twitter at Rose Petal Writer. I'm on Instagram at olivia.rosepetalwritings. I'm on Facebook as the Rose Petal Writings page. You can find my website at rosepetalwritings.com. And finally, you can email me at olivia.rosepetalwritings@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to my crazy nonsense. Hopefully you will take the time to like, follow, and maybe leave a review. Totally up to you, but I would really appreciate it all the same. Thank you guys so much, seriously, for listening to this. Like, it means the world to me to have a listen, even if I know you personally, and I know you're doing it because you're biased. I love you and appreciate you. Thank you again, guys. Bye.